What is up? What is up? What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Ronnie Skelton II, also known as King Majora. And I got another hot take for you today. Maybe it's an unpopular gamer opinion, but I think it needs to be spoken about. When these UFO whistleblowers, when they be speaking about the Nordic intelligence, I have my own UFO abduction testimony. Now, like I said, it's simple testimony. I can't prove it. I'm not like some of those who have remains from like hairs or artifacts. Maybe I have some sort of implants. I can't tell you to be for certain. I'm just being honest with you. But I've had Nordic encounters in my dream time, and that have been very suspect. When you look at the UFO whistleblowers over the years alleged, you got people like William Tompkins. He's big in the Michael Salla vein of ufology. With the secret space program, going into the Orsic, Maria Orsic channelings, going into the concept that these are a form of Ashtar Galactic Command. Pleiadians goes into the starseed phenomenon. But the problem with all of that is, and a lot of people aren't ready for it. Excuse me, one moment. They're not ready for the fact that it's more likely, like for example with William Tompkins and even the Billy Meyer case and many others that report having a Nordic phenomena with their abduction phenomena or experiencer cases, is that they speak High German. It goes into the Thule Society, one of the peoples that was up Hitler's ass, not to mention IG Farben Pharmaceuticals and Thyssen Steel, but these types involved with the Teutonic Knights and the Thule Society had an extreme eugenics-based thinking about trying to emulate their ancestors. And if you understand a lot about the Germanic, Celtic, Nordic, all of the surrounding pagan ideologies infused with their, calling themselves the New Rome, but the Third Reich itself. These people, these more esoteric types that were within Hitler's inner circle really did want to emulate the ancestors, who to them would be the deities. Some would call them the Tue de Dana, the Aesir veneer, depending on what flavor you would like to interpret it as. And a lot of that has to do with their ancestor worship. And if you really just follow the train of logic, the Nordics appear, more likely to be a result of something like the Lebensborn Project, the breeding program of the Nazis. Who's to say it did not go underground? I mean, I did a video on this. It was a Red Pill video about the aliens. They basically are preparing us for alien contact and integration within, new technologies that's been suppressed. This goes into the whistleblower testimony. The whole idea that we need to be disclosure itself, I take that quite literally. My investigative research, I'm not telling people to just believe me. I've come to my conclusions from my reasonings and my experiences. I do admit that I'm a chaos magician. Some people believe that's real, some people don't, and I respect you either way. But when it comes to this phenomena, I have studied both conspiratorium and academic. I do a lot of research with Grok. I had the more advanced subscription, and I know that there's qualms with how AI, gets its research. But, I try to make my methodology and epistemology at least intellectually honest, and I try to support my reasoning if it does not, go with a consensus view on academic standards or whatever. I at least give my reasonings as to why. But when you actually follow the experience or testimony, and from these people within the military and the surrounding cults like Maria Orsic, talking about Madame Blavatsky, these types were basically what formulated the spiritual mythology of the New Age that more or less was just kept evolving with the Ashtar Command phenomena And I think it's a deception. I think that these non-human intelligence, the Nordic types, and I do agree that there is a blue type based upon the ancient evidences of like what the old religions once spoke of. I believe in a comparative mythology and religious study that I think that they're all trying to represent the same universal understandings of a past that more or less, once we were reset, we lost the communication with them. But I don't think that they're all gone. I think that whatever we have become in the last however long, this goes into, do you consider the Scaliger Scaliger chronology correct? There's qualms about Plato and Plotinus and how weird that is, and the circumstances of the two eras, talking about phantom time hypothesis. There are reasons to believe it. There are reasons to question the mainstream authority, especially on things that have been given in textbooks as a child. So the reason I'm bringing all of this up is I do believe that there is a remnant of the Third Reich that wants to basically, with elements that failed with the business plot in the 30s with the Americans, the American first business fascist types, the consumerist fashion and real estate, the titans of business that wanted to create their own oligarchy within the system, and basically how they're doing with the AI technocrat bros. And it's all still the flavors of the same expression of control. And I think that it just mirrors whatever sort of government hierarchy that the non-human intelligence, especially the Nordic human varieties, because if you study the ancient Bible, like the actual Tanakh in its original format and context, it's very clear that these beings were a form of white Nordic or albino intelligence, aggressive, and the original humans were basically a product of labor. And when you consider that these non-human intelligence of like the fascist Romanite imperial design kind of go in with the whole theories of the Aryan invasion, I'm trying to bring all of this together because there is a trail of at least context where you can say that we have enough based on the old, for example, the Assyriology and the Akkadian tablets, speaking of their mythology, combining with the scholarly opinions of those such as Mauro Bellino and his fantastic work, Gods of the Bible. I think that you can strongly make a case that, basically once the world was reset and we have had tweaked from these watcher perspectives, from whatever they are, apparently if you believe the whistleblower testimony, it's a Nordic, a mantid-like race, basically a reptilian-like race and a gray type race. Of course, I've went into Philip J. Corso's whistleblower testimony that the gray is like a suit, and the black is the contact lenses that we kind of reverse engineered to get a lot of fiber optic technologies. You can read The Day After Roswell, and I think that this is all culminating into where, like for example, Fars, the Iranian news source that's semi-official, like it's like they have influence over it in an official lens, and they basically said, look, based on what what was his name, Snowden was saying, like he was communicating that basically Nazi Nordic aliens were running the U.S. government after they basically left the Third Reich. I mean, this goes into the alleged theories of Operation High Jump in the Antarctic and stuff like that. I think that the UFO mythology has been culture poisoned by the New Age and this hopium copium New Age Galactic Federation nonsense. I mean, when you consider the people that were peddling it officially, such as people like Israel's former space security chief, Haim Hashid, these types are all involved with the circle that's connected to these radical madmen, business types that are involved with like the same element that was involved with the fraternity that traded with Germany. These elements like Prescott Bush that became the Bush dynasty. These people were trading like Ford, and the Ford family is involved with social engineering, as I brought up with Rockefeller. Okay, they're all culminating into the same bloodline married intermingled business titan royal elites that evoke the same mentalities that gave rise to Hitler, such as the Thule Society, who believed in the Vril, the power of the coming race novel, to be real, that there was a subterranean ancestor race that was once here and they went underground after a cataclysm and they're going to take over once it's done. And I think that is more true to what is likely, that there is a form of Nordic ancestors who helped engineer the biblical Genesis Adam, or the Sumerian context Adamu, whatever the hell he is. You know, when it explains that within Enki and Ninmah and the stories of creation within the Assyriology and stuff like that, you know, even if you don't take the ancient alien Sitchin route with it, it still implies something vaguely similar. You know, the ME, the way of manifesting law, there's some sort of aether construct that even the Anunnaki obeyed. And the Anunnaki is interchangeable with Elohim, which is plurality in the pantheon of the Canaanites, in which the Judeans and Israelites adopted when they eventually went monotheistic. And, you know, you can't argue a real monad with that, because the context is that Yahweh is not El Elyon, so what is the point of even serving Yahweh? But you don't want that out there. But I digress. I think that to round up everything that I'm saying, because I try to seed every little part of this conversation to get to my greater point, and I'm thankful if you stayed with me. I know sometimes it can be seen as a little bit of a tangent here and there, but I try to wrap them all up as the series goes on. So the Nordic intelligence, I think that there's something to be said when you look into the eugenics and breeding programs and the ideologies around the fascist power that's echoing today, even within the Donald Trump administration. And I'm not one of those who just blindly calls him a Nazi and racist. I'm not a leftist retard. You know, I'm not saying anything about leftists or rightists. I'm not even involved with politics, but you know what I'm saying? His cabal of cronies from the real estate wealth class have basically pulled a number on people through manipulation of conspiracy media and thinking that he was going to do something. It was Hope and Change 2.0. It was the wedge issue like Obama was for the left. He did it for the right. This whole class of people's robbing us blind, and they're all connected to the bloodline elite. The copium is that there's this galactic federation that's going to save us from ourselves, when in all actuality the ancient texts and the reasoning consists within the, you know, how they claim divine right through monarchies through history, and how we still have the bloodline elites that control today and are the more empowered neuro-advanced variations of, you know, mankind becoming the exceptional within secret societies and society at large. You know, you just see it more often within those types. And I think that, you know, the non-human intelligence has orchestrated it from the beginning, and they still get rewarded despite some of the greatest and heinous of crimes and corruptions like Epstein. I think that we have a morality system that these aliens do not have. I think that we have a morality system that is built to control us. I think that our morality has been even more saturated in the last few decades within the modern first world, such as United States hegemony and surrounding allied European nations that we basically call the West. I think that we have lost our nutsack because of the propaganda and design of the Chabadite radicals, these Hasidic nationalist Jewish extremists that are involved with the Likud party and the Trump administration and the pro-Israeli lobby in the United States and the West. You know, these types want to bring about a form of mind control / you know, weird racial supremacist laws, and where mankind basically has to serve in the Noahide laws of 7 basic laws that are punishable by death if you violate them, and the other class have their hundreds and somethings of laws that they follow based on their regular Jewishness, and they basically feel that we go back to the ancient times, but it's the visions and the jerk-off sessions of their ancient times greatest Pharisees, like the Talmud, and they think that they're going to one day reclaim claim the original Jewish Bible nature, but take control over all of the world, and no nation is going to compare to them, and they're enslaving everyone else. The problem with that is there's no monotheism in the Bible, and I've made several videos such as the monotheism deception and Elohim, the non-human intelligence among us, that basically shows that the Bible is not anything like what monotheists like to claim. From any variation, from Abraham's, it's all the same. It's going back to the Canaanite mythos. The El Elyon is the Most High El. Yahweh is one of many. I am as plurality. In the context of the pantheon, people just call them false idols and fake gods out of rhetoric, out of Rome, and how basically people were illiterate and didn't have the Bible, or they weren't allowed to have the Bible, so they didn't understand anything but what people were told by official channels. This ties into my greater point of this video, because it's the Malachim, it's the angels. It is a class, the GG. There are a subordinate class. They are the ones who, because the labor was too cumbersome, that they actually started to rebel, and why humanity began, according to Assyriology and the Akkadian cuneiform tablets. So you have the context that these beings are capable of rebelling. They are very fascistic, and they have a method of being gluttonous, lazy son of a bitches. Let's be honest here. And whatever the Earth atom was, which I went into in the Elohim video, which was like a reddish, pinkish person with black or darker hair or redder hair, that goes into the context of the first Adam and the Lilu or Pandora mythology, or Lilith, that is within the Assyriology, and you can find resources like that even within the Zechariah Sitchin material, and Michael Tellinger, talking about slave species of the gods. It's revealing that even if you don't combine that element, you even got to look at the context that everyone called heaven space, or space was heaven to everyone in every context. Yet we're supposed to not have that for the monotheistic religions that speak it within the Bible, but the Bible itself is a pantheon that is even reflective within, for example, the Chinese, the Jade bureaucracy. The Hindus have their several pantheon structure that's like a bureaucracy. It's mimicking. People think it was to mimic our own with the divine, but I think it's the reverse. I think that we had a cargo cult phenomena such as how Mauro Bellino claims. You've basically got the fact that these non-human intelligences keep hybridization, and I think that the basically the gap with like Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens sapiens, there is a connection between the fact that whatever is talked about in the ancient tablets and written down, I don't think that they were the same race as us. I think that they were a different being. I'm just being real with you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm trying to mix everything together. I kind of hit some weed, so it might be kind of retarded. I'm sorry. But my greater point is this. There's so much more to the fact that these things are likely the folk mythology, the ancient religions, and we are merely a manifestation of whatever they're tinkering with. And they are now simply choosing to intervene into our lives again very soon, which is why I personally believe that UFO disclosure is even happening in our lifetimes, or even as much as it has. I do expect there to be a form of disclosure within the next decade, at least to the point where people are self-assured in mass that there are at least a non-human intelligence among us, and eventually an integration. This is seen in biblical prophecies like the days of Noah returning, where they're basically among us, breeding, relating, having business and trade among us again. And I eventually think it'll be reset. The whole purpose of explaining all of this is if they go about it in the form of we are Pleiadians or we are Arcturians and it's a galactic federation of love and light and all that shit, Ashtar Command, just know that that's probably a bunch of horse shit. A great deception by Nazi intelligence that have their cults within perhaps Venus, the planet itself. Going into the Velikovsky theory. I'm going to be making a video really soon. I've been teasing it recently about the Planet X case, the fact that we may have a trinary or binary system. As we're finding out is more common than we thought originally as we keep looking into space. We just might be one of them, and I think there might be a case for that. So be on the lookout for that video. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but just to tie it in more neatly, yeah, I think that we are probably going to get lied to based upon how everything is going, either by a religious tinge, as the people in Congress and J.D. Vance, the vice president, was saying, like they want to have a biblical Enoch level tinge to it, but I don't think there's enough evidence from the biblical case and historical case that there's even a fallen angel, Lucifer, Satan rebellion like people claim there is. That's all like Mysterium Iniquitatis Romanite propaganda that forged with monotheism and does not support the caste system government structure of the non-human intelligence among us that the ancients believed were once among us, and a lot of the architecture around the world reflects. No matter what variation of history you choose to believe, rather you accept modern chronology or you find, like myself, different disagreements with how the methodology and basically how the world and what we consider the past really is. But that goes deep into our methodologies, and we can get into that another time. I don't ramble anymore, people. So be sure to like and subscribe wherever you are at. Thank you for listening to this rant video. I just wanted to unload about that. So yeah, the Nordics may be involved with a greater caste system, and where the reptilians and the others, like Seraphim, reptilian, Seraph, lizard, reptile, snake, I am plurality, reptilians. The past was speaking about it. Of course, I believe in the amphibious nature of like the Oannes or Oans, whatever they're called, and the other races of Syriology and the Akkadian tablets of ancient Sumer. So, yeah, I think they're all going to just reveal themselves to us, and I think eventually it's going to lead to our own destruction through selfish means, and I think it's by design. I think it's cyclical, like Ragnarok, and we'll get into that in my next video. Be sure to like and subscribe. I will see you all next time.